So Zoran Mamdani a couple of days ago in a speech talked about AIPAC dark money.
And we need that because, as Gramsci
Well, that's some audio delay. Whatever.
once wrote, the old world is dying and the new world struggles to be born. Now is the time of monsters. These monsters take many forms today. In those who fund television ads that blanket the airwaves with misleading and bad faith attacks about Claire, Brad, and Dari. Those who would rather spend far more on political contributions than they would ever be made to pay in taxes. In AIPAC, for whom the only thing more frightening than democracy being allowed to run its course is an end to genocide and Netanyahu's wars.
Are they going to say this is JQ or something? Yeah, of course. They already have.
They move millions in dark money to accomplish a single goal, to preserve their power so that they can turn us against one another, instead of our leaders turning towards the moral change we all know to be necessary.
So, as if responding to and validating the validity of this sentiment, Josh Gottenheimer, who is a proud and loyal servant of AIPAC, said in chat GPT parlance, "Monsters, dark money, a hidden hand turning us against one another. Swap AIPAC for Jews, and it's the oldest anti-Semitic conspiracy theory in the books. That's not criticizing a lobby. That's laundering anti-Semitism from your podium. Is blah, 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 blah." That's fully ChatGPT. It's always ChatGPT. All of them, they don't care. They know they're lying, etc. That's not X, it's Y. You know, when I read your post on how you're irritated by the, swelter of bugs outside during spring, but I noticed that if you replace the word mosquitoes with Jews, your post looks like really anti-Semitic. I was slapping Jews when I went outside. What are you talking about, man? Unironically, Gottheimer being anti-Semitic here? Yeah, of course. Zionists are anti-Semitic. It's a Nazi ideology. Anyway, worthless bullshit here. But Greenblatt got in on it. Head of the ADL, Nazi, anti-Jewish race mixing, etc., etc. It's been 3 days since Mayor Mamdani took to the stage to demonize and denigrate his Jewish constituents. Yes, that he's referring to the clip we just saw of Mamdani. I initially didn't say anything because I felt certain he would retract his incendiary comments or at least explain them. I was wrong. The real reason that Greenblatt didn't say anything is probably because he was waiting for this post from Gottheimer. Obviously, Greenblatt has never, ever, ever shied away from an opportunity to disingenuously accuse Mamdani of being anti-Semitic, so he was probably just waiting for like a media drop or for somebody to reply to an email or whatever. I was wrong. This is the kind of bigoted conspiracy mongering you expect from unhinged streamers or white supremacists. There's Hassan and Nick Fuentes. It's not the language we should expect from the mayor, whose jurisdiction suffers from the highest levels of anti-Semitism of any city in America. They actually expect you to believe this. They expect you to believe New York City is the most anti-Semitic American city. They expect you to believe this. Just unreal. Thankfully, Greenblatt and the ADL broadly has lost a fuck ton of clout ever since they became an unapologetic genocide laundering machine. Like the ADL used to be respected more as like a politically neutral, progressive organization, but Jonathan Greenblatt is such an unabashed Jewish supremacist and like Israeli war crimes apologist that it's lost a lot of legitimacy. Like liberals don't really listen to the ADL anymore, which is why he exclusively posts with locked replies and he gets ratioed on like every single thing he says. It's so fucked up. Yeah. Anyway, the reason I'm heading towards all this is because Mamdani was asked about this in a recent press conference.
Some members of the Jewish community, including Democratic Congressman Josh Gottheimer, were alarmed by the language you used at the rally last week, calling AIPAC monsters who move dark money. These are phrases that invoke old anti-Semitic tropes and conspiracy theories. What do you say to those who are concerned that the language you used is dangerous?
Now, I want to be very clear. We're talking about a status quo where children are being killed on a daily basis. More than 1,000 Palestinians have been killed by the Israeli military since the so-called ceasefire. Even an Al Jazeera journalist, Ahmed Wishah, was killed this past Saturday by an Israeli strike. And when I am speaking about AIPAC, I'm speaking about an organization that has been supportive of the status quo, that has fought any attempt to actually deliver safety to people not just in Palestine.
I've been optimistic that over time Mamdani would shift into being a little bit more broadly politically aggressive, it makes sense that for the first year or so, he would really, really hammer in on being like the bestest mayor, bring your approval rating up, try to avoid drama. But over time, like, look, the Zionist stranglehold on American politics can't just be ignored. It has to be directly challenged. And he's in a very good position to do so, considering the fact that like New York City is the most like Jewish city in America. This is like a front line to argue against the position that anti-Zionism is something that has to be conducted like, outside of Jewish spaces or away from Jewish people or whatever. Like, he's in the best position to confront this directly. So I hope his language gets more aggressive. I appreciate the fact here that he's not saying like, some apologetic conciliatory thing. He's opening by saying like, well, Israel should stop killing people then, That would be like the solution, I think, possibly, potentially. You get me.
Palestine, but frankly, through much of the region. And it is a status quo for immorality. It is one that I will not accept. And when it comes to the way in which they defend the status...
Oh, sorry, I just want to throw this in here because it relates to what I've been saying about like actual anti-Semitism. This is a clip of Jesse Waters referring to J.D. Vance's turn against Israel over the past couple of days.
Vance sent a warning to the Jews. He said, watch out. Trump's your daddy, too.
So this is the kind of casual anti-Semitism that if we actually gave a fuck, we would be focusing on. To people like Jesse Waters, to like open, unabashed fascists, admittedly like disingenuous ones, but still, like when every accusation they make about the left conflating Israel and Jews is what they're doing. It is the most like holds up a mirror to criticism approach possible. It's ridiculous how reliably they do this. Yeah, I saw that clip. I had to fit it in somewhere. It's just crazy to me how openly they can do that,
Quo. Oftentimes they defend it through direct contributions, as we are seeing right now in New York 13. Oftentimes they also support the status quo through dark money, by filtering money that would have previously been directly from AIPAC, now through other shell organizations.
Why do Zionists not talk about this being the real anti-Semitism? Because Zionists are anti-Semites.
Whose identities of their contributors are only made clear after an election. And I think that it is important that when we ask ourselves how such death and destruction is happening overseas, we also name those who allow it to take place.
All right, we're going to go.
And the applause. Get fucked, you pieces of shit. You bullied this man relentlessly for not being, for not kissing the wall. Yeah, man, look at how unpopular Greenblatt's post. He used to be so much more influential than he is right now. 4 hours ago, 44 likes. Every fucking post has comments disabled. 57% of American Jews now consider anti-Semitism a normal part of life. Why is anyone taking Gottheimer seriously? They're not. That's my point. Liberal Zionism has always been fake, but it has like a massive fucking timer on it right now. The time during which you can plausibly posture as a liberal Zionist is coming to a close. It was limited to begin with, but now like everyone sees what they did to Mamdani. Support for Israel among Democrats is lower than it ever has been. Every time it gets polled, it goes even lower. What is it at currently? Hold on. Up to 80% of Democrats now view Israel unfavorably. A clear majority sympathize more with Palestinians than Israelis. Yeah, it's nuts. I think that liberal Zionism was always a political contradiction that relied in large part on ignorance of the situation, or at the very least of like a naive outlook that wouldn't survive the test of reality. You know what I mean? Whereas like October 7th gave sort of like attention to that lie. But I would argue that all of the evidence you needed that liberal Zionism was impossible was present there to begin with. October 7th just forced the hand of a lot of Zionists and made it more clear to everyone that there was that inconsistency. This is the shit Republicans be saying and Dems still refuse to pivot. Yeah. Hello, Collins. Hello, you shaky bitch.
Record in terms of showing up for these votes. Last question, the issue of Israel is becoming such a hot button, and it could be a factor in your race, which is a very close race. Most of the polls have him up by about 4. It's a similar margin that you were down by in your last election, which you ended up winning. But what do you say, when you hear these numbers that an AIPAC endorsement can make people less likely 44% say.
Has it always been this way with the right, Vosh? This is more of a controversial position, I think, but I feel like supremacist bigotry has always necessarily entailed a kind of self-bigotry as well. In the same way that chauvinists, misogynists often posture men as unthinking, unfeeling, brutal monsters who can't help but rape. And like Nazi propaganda painted Aryans as like natural machine people who were more industrious, efficient, and murderously competent than other races, you know? I think that supremacist logic ultimately is dehumanizing to everyone. That does not mean, of course, that everyone is equally a victim of it, but Zionism is anti-Semitic. You know, I think that like I don't believe that the supremacist group benefits from supremacism, even if they're in charge of society. I think that everyone benefits from equality. You know, it's not just it implies a lot of very nasty stuff about you know, the so-called supremacist group. I mean, obviously Zionists have incredibly low opinions of Jews, which is why they seem to think that the only possible way that Jewish people could ever live in peace is by initiating World War III. I don't think that's good, in my opinion.
Would make them less likely to vote for the candidate. You have been supportive of Israel. Are you changing that support at all in light of all of this?
No way. I remain a very strong supporter of Israel, the one democracy in the Middle East, our
shaking like a fucking teacup in her hands.
True ally in the Middle East. And I think this sadly reflects rising anti-Semitism in our country that Graham Plattner certainly is part of and has been since his high school days. That's been a consistent theme throughout.
I really want her to debate Plattner. Plattner is going to crush her into a little cube of meat and slam dunk her. It's going to be so. There's no fucking way, dog. Literally shaking. You know that she had undisclosed health issues until Ken Klippenstein bullied reporters into acknowledging it? That's not a joke. Like, it is considered a social faux pas as a reporter to do your job and ask politicians about their health. Ken Klippenstein started running articles on how she was shaking like a goddamn bobblehead every time she spoke in front of a camera, even in her fucking campaign release video. And only after that did people start asking her questions and a bunch of medical issues came out. She is, you know, really old and obviously not well. Look at her. She's shaking.
His entire life. He accuses Israel of committing genocide. He praises Hamas for its tactics in killing Israeli soldiers. This is appalling. And it's important to recognize that AIPAC is made up of Americans who care deeply about
defending AIPAC, not just defending Israel, but defending AIPAC itself. AIPAC isn't even popular with Republicans.
Our relationship with Israel. Plattner makes it sound like this is some sort of evil foreign influence, and that is absolutely wrong.
Well, we will be covering the race closely, and we are record in terms of.
Well, it's not an evil foreign influence. It just represents the interests of capital. It's true that AIPAC is not, again, like the accusations of foreign interference are technically, they're viable and somewhat correct, but they're not like the real key on it. The real key is that capital is international. It has been since the end of the Second World War. It's just not, you know, it's an evil domestic influence. It's an evil foreign influence. Was Epstein really an American? I guess. Was he really Israeli? I mean, I don't know. Like, he could have been anything. It doesn't matter. Would it have changed anything if Epstein was born in like France? You know, it's like genuinely immaterial to what he was and the power he held and like the forces that he represents. He was definitely a child molester. That is true. He was born in child molestolia. That is true. If he wasn't born in child molestolia, then maybe things would have been different. Yeah, you're right. I forgot to factor in like the national character and the way it might have influenced his molestistan. Yeah. Way it might have influenced his life. If he wasn't born in Molestistan, then he would have just been a sparkling predator. That's fucking good. That's good. I don't get it. It's okay.